Kherson region is suffering because of Russian aggression. Today, the occupiers deliberately struck a perinatal center in Kherson. At that moment, childbirth was taking place there, but fortunately, there were no casualties. In recent days, Russian occupiers have been intensively attacking the Kherson CHP plant, striking it with drones, artillery, and other types of weapons, according to the head of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, Oleksandr Prokudin.
Despite the protective measures taken, the station's premises and equipment suffered very serious damage. Because of this, the CHP plant's operations have been suspended. As a result, you could say that 50% of Kherson's 470 buildings are now without heat. That's more than 40,500 subscribers. And it's important to understand that Kherson is on the front line. The enemy is just a few kilometers away from us and is constantly shelling the city. So it's simply impossible to predict the timeline for restoration work.
In the Dnipropetrovsk region, there have been 15 wounded in the past few days and over 200 attacks per day. The enemy does not stop terrorizing Nikopol. The streets of the district center are becoming increasingly deserted. Locals try to deal with the aftermath of the attacks in between air raid alerts. More in the report by Olena Mendelyuk.
In Nikopol, it's almost non-stop, even explosions. And against this backdrop, construction equipment is at work. Locals are covering up windows shattered by previous shelling. Ms. Valentina is waiting for special shields. The blast wave shattered all the windows in the pensioner's home. A shell landed in the yard.
They kept firing for almost an hour after that. This one hit and then we peeked out. And there was shooting over there and here and behind and even as far as the transport station.
Ms. Lyudmila and her husband are cleaning up the apartment from broken glass. The windows were blown out on the balcony and in the bedroom.
Well, probably the basement. It's actually a blessing that it landed in the basement. If it had landed near the basement, there wouldn't be anything left of the house here. This isn't the first time a shell has landed here. That area was at the beginning of the first entrance. We also live in Novopavlivka. We're both here and there. Our house was completely destroyed.
The Nikopol district suffers up to 200 enemy attacks per day. Most of them target the central districts. The streets here are half empty because a Russian drone attack can happen at any moment.
The heart is pounding? Yes. I'm always like this, my heart. I have to pop pills in my mouth and then I calm down.
Mr. Vadim and his partner have made almost 40 OSB shields for broken windows. They were sent by the municipal service. The men work non-stop, even though explosions are happening very close by. Because if you keep hiding all the time, the work will come to a complete stop. The man shows on his phone how Russian drones are hunting their crews. Ms. Natalia doesn't stop working either. She works as a janitor and also helps clean up after the shelling. She admits that sometimes it gets scary.
It buzzes under the entrance, all the doors are closed, and that's it.
Does that happen often?
Well, of course, it happens here every day. What can I do? I go out. What else? 2 or 3 times a week.
To keep people safe, shelters are being built near bus stops in the city.
It's dangerous. That's how we go out. While I'm walking quickly, they're not shooting because I'm on my way to a funeral. That's how everyone is, quickly, because as you can see, a woman just went outside, was simply walking down the street. And a shell fell and killed her instantly.
Additionally, along the roads of Nikopol, they're setting up a lifeline along the roadway, stretching anti-drone nets. The construction workers are currently installing the supports. At the moment, the work is being carried out in the most dangerous places where there is heavy traffic over the roads, at bus stops, and so on.
We meticulously carry out this essential work only where the security situation genuinely allows, because we simply cannot bring in the necessary equipment and skilled personnel to every single district.
We've been waiting for this for a long time and hope that it will help us, at least in some way.
However, the authorities warn that the nets are not a cure-all. The enemy is cunning and continues to shell us with artillery. In the past 24 hours in Nikopol, more than 10 people have been injured due to shelling, including a 10-year-old child. Reporting from Dnipropetrovsk region, Olena Modlyuk, Yaroslav Zasoba, Podrobici, Intermarathon TV channel, United News.
The situation with natural gas is difficult, but under control. Almost 100% of the housing stock in Ukraine has been connected to heating, including in frontline regions. This was reported by officials from Naftogaz and the Ministry of Energy. For a stable heating season, Ukraine needs to import about 4.5 billion more cubic meters of gas. Naftogaz stated that 2 billion euros are needed for this.
Since the beginning of October, there have been more than 10 massive strikes on gas transmission and gas infrastructure facilities alone. The most recent ones occurred the night before last and in the morning. This is happening constantly. It's just that you see or hear about the larger scale ones, for example, in the Kharkiv region. Since the beginning of the year, there have been more strikes. Over 500. Under these constant attacks, we are forced to work with many possible scenarios. And we import from all possible directions through these interconnectors. We will need approximately 2 billion, 1.9 billion euros to import about 4.4 additional billion cubic meters. That's more than 70% of the available funding. We have it, we are covering it, and we continue working to fully close this funding gap.
In response to Russian strikes on Ukraine's energy sector, the President of France stated this during a joint press conference with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. In particular, Macron advised the head of the PRC to influence Russia to stop attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, at least until the end of the winter period. Macron emphasized that the war in Ukraine poses a threat to European security and undermines the international order based on the rule of law. And he called on Xi Jinping to work towards ensuring that peace in Ukraine is just, lasting, and prevents the recurrence of war.
I hope that China will join our call and efforts to achieve at least a swift ceasefire in Ukraine, in the form of a moratorium on strikes against critical infrastructure. This will be of key importance in the coming winter, since civilian infrastructure, especially energy facilities, has previously been under Russian shelling. But in a broader sense, we must work together to achieve a just and lasting peace, in which all parties will adhere to the norms of international law.
More than 130 combat clashes have taken place on the front since the beginning of the day. According to the General Staff, the occupiers attacked 46 times in the Pokrovsk direction. The defense forces are holding back the pressure and have repelled 40 assaults. Search and strike operations are ongoing in the area of the city of Pokrovsk. The enemy is also putting pressure on other sectors. A MiG-29 enemy fighter jet was destroyed by the primary special unit of the main intelligence directorate. The aircraft was hit on the territory of the Kacha military airfield in temporarily occupied Crimea. Our defenders also destroyed the Irtish airfield radar complex near temporarily occupied Simferopol. Let me remind you, in September, the Huars primary, for the first time in history, they burned 2 Russian B-12 Chaika anti-submarine amphibious aircraft. Minus 1,140 occupiers in the past day. According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, since the beginning of the invasion, the Russian army has lost 1,177,370 of its soldiers. Our defenders have destroyed 11,396 tanks and 23,685 armored fighting vehicles, 34,809 artillery systems, 1,556 MLRs, and 1,253 air defense systems. They have destroyed 430 combat aircraft, 347 helicopters, 86,476 drones, and 4,024 cruise missiles. 28 ships and 1 submarine have been eliminated, as well as over 68,000 special vehicles. Next, about our joint achievement with you. 2 weeks ago, the soldiers defending Pokrovsky reached out to the Podrobnosti editorial office asking for help to raise money for a vehicle. Without it, they can't reach their positions, deliver ammunition, or evacuate the wounded. And today, the drone operators of the 428th Separate Battalion of Unmanned Systems TINI, who are currently holding back the enemy on one of the hottest fronts, report that the fundraising is complete. Thank you. The vehicle has been purchased, and we will continue to support our defenders. The payment details are in the brief report from the soldiers.
We wish you strong, unbreakable Cossack health. We are the soldiers of the 428th Separate Battalion of Unmanned Systems. Horse, we sincerely thank the viewers of the Inter-TV channel for your generous support in raising funds for the SUV. Your contributions have provided us with a reliable all-wheel drive Jeep, which guarantees speed and maneuverability during combat missions. It will enhance the work of our pilots, allowing us to destroy the enemy continuously. We invite you to join the next fundraiser for a vehicle. On the front line, transportation saves lives and brings victory closer. Glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes.
Instead of a classroom, a dugout, a National Guard soldier with the call sign Professor operates a reconnaissance drone at the age of 53. Before the full-scale invasion, he taught mathematics. He says that even in the military, he wants to defeat the enemy with his mind. Listen to the story of a teacher at the front.
We've received new pro drones. We need to see how they fly.
The drone pilot with the call sign Professor is 53 years old. The origin of his nickname is clear, since he is a candidate of sciences. He spent 20 years of his life giving lectures and conducting practical classes with his students. He taught mathematics.
I remember there was this kind of oppressive silence. The students, no one asked anything and so on. And I decided, although maybe it's not exactly part of a teacher's duties, but I advised them that they needed to stay calm and do what they could. You can take first aid courses.
Yes, the professor recalls the last class on February 25th, 2022. Soon after, he received a draft notice and joined the 2nd Galician Brigade of the National Guard. At first, he carried out tasks in the rear.
There was a feeling that we weren't really, that our efforts weren't bringing victory much closer. And when the opportunity to learn about drones came up, I decided that I wanted to take advantage of that opportunity.
For a year, I attended drone schools. I was eager to get to the front lines as soon as possible. As soon as the opportunity arose, I immediately transferred to the UAV unit Lemberg. Last year was the first rotation. Since then, the professor has been operating reconnaissance drones and has already become a squad commander.
A lot of a pilot's work is actually not just flying the Mavic. You need to plan well. You have to check all the technical aspects, constantly keep track of what's happening because everything changes very dynamically. Systematic approaches are needed. I think this somehow correlates with my professional skills.
In the National Guard, he took part in the battles for Vuhledar. Together with his comrades, he relayed information about the location of enemy artillery and equipment.
In reality, in those situations, it's a matter of minutes even, like to detect their equipment that's going in for an assault just 5 minutes later. It's very difficult because, again, we detect, we transmit the data, and you need at least some minimal time to figure out where it is. Then accordingly, the artillery has to be aimed, FPV pilots have to take off and make it in time to reach the target.
The main task of the operator is to be the eyes of the unit. To save the lives of your comrades, you have to keep the bird in the sky no matter the weather conditions. Heavy rain or strong wind, the drone still has to be in the air.
You never know how the drone will behave in those conditions. And all those moments. So it was always a challenge, and it didn't always end well for the drone. But that's the reality.
The professor wants to return to peaceful life, to the walls of university lecture halls. Meanwhile, the students support his unit with donations. Colleagues are waiting for him too. And as for the end of the war, he has his own opinion.
We are not expecting any very easy times in the near future. And even if we were to find ourselves in a prolonged and unresolved frozen conflict with Muscovy, it is by no means certain that such a precarious situation would endure for an extended period of time, given the dynamic geopolitical landscape. But we'll hold, so I would like people to accept this reality.
So the professor urges people to join Lemberg, the 2nd Galician Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine. He assures that if you have the desire, 2 or 3 weeks is quite enough to learn how to operate a drone. Roman Havriliv, Yuri Hlubinka, Podrobici, Tolknal Inter, Marathon, United News.
The next news release is scheduled for the 19th, and in a moment, the marathon continues with Oleksiy Fadeev. And he is preparing a live report from Washington.
Yes, there will be a live report from Washington. We will talk about the negotiation process, of course. We will discuss the front lines, and there will be a fundraiser.